Good morning.
Oh, yeah. Morning, Jivan.
Hi, Rachel.
Okay, yes. So, I guess I'm curious about the entirety of your practice and how your teaching and your research and reading combine with the making and how they all inform each other. With no small topic there, I know. I suppose my first question is why jewellery as the vehicle for your creative output?
Well, I guess, that's historical. So when I was 19, I was no good for anything. And so didn't want to go to university, even though I attended a school that prepared me for university study. I just sort of left my parents' house and lived secretly with my boyfriend. They didn't know where I was, so it was so hugely traumatic. No, it's not traumatic. No, I don't want to use the wrong word, but it's like it's a kind of like a late puberty that happens at around the age of 19, 21. That is so tricky to navigate because the role models available don't fit, and to find what fits needs an enormous amount of resilience, resistance, aggression, and sheer bloody-mindedness. So anyway, so I was on the sofa of my boyfriend's house, and in my boyfriend's house, and thought, oh well, I like jewelry, always liked it. So let's see if I could get an apprenticeship. It was simply, it fell into my head. And then I took out, at the time, of course, there were no computers. So I opened the yellow pages and I started phoning around to jewelry businesses, which in Germany, in Berlin, where I'm from, they are differently organized. There's a guild, and usually goldsmithing studios are attached to shops. So they're independent businesses. It's different to how most companies operate in the UK. So one of those telephone calls got me to the guild master. I didn't have a freaking clue who those people were. So he just thought it was funny that, somebody phones them and says, do you know a goldsmithing apprenticeship? The naivety of it. And then he said, well, yeah, there's this young colleague who just opened his business and might be open to an apprentice. So I got in touch with this guy and he said, yeah, come around Thursday. Thursday. And then he said, well, so there are quite a few who want this apprenticeship. And what I'm doing a 4-day work practice engagement with everybody. So everybody was working with them for that amount of time. And on the basis of that, he would choose. So he showed me how to solder and he showed me how to pierce, gave me a few grams of silver and said, do. And I made a ring. I had a stone from Sicily, from the beach, and I made this wonderful ring. I still have it. And after those 4 days, he said, well, we start on Monday, 9 o'clock sharp. And that changed my life, I guess. So his name is Gerhard Bandelow. I called him Abby. And his son still has the business in Berlin. So it went from there, and it wasn't always ever happy after, but that was my, it's my art form. I'm a very avid photographer, and I take great pride in the images that I create.
Sure.
I also love making videos, and I have for a long time also, when I was younger, made clothes, which I sold. I mean, sort of in punk time, okay?
Sure.
So I like other art forms as well. I have a lot of painters, friends who are painters.
Yes, of course.
But making clothes or painting doesn't, there's no fire.
Yes, yeah, I do know. It's interesting, isn't it?
So yes, it's like the making part. It's exciting and it's challenging, and I'm not an accurate jeweler, so to make a box is hell for me. But to I have a very intuitive, quite accurate feeling for the materials and for the flame.
Sure.
So that was from the word go. So I think I can't claim any conscious choice. I can only say fate worked out that way, and it was right for me. So
in that moment, I mean, 'cause there's a number of things in what you've just said there. I mean, you started by saying you weren't good for anything, yet jewellery is really rigorous.
yeah, I think it has something to do with focus. And when you're at this age, so they, there's sort of raging hormones and, the rebellious spirit. And I was much wilder than my brothers. So it's like finding something where you just seep into an intense focus.
Yes.
For a young person who can't sit still, that's quite magical.
Yes. Yeah, it's quite extraordinary actually, where I guess takes one out of one's head and into
Yes.
hands, I suppose.
Yes, and I call it the zone. So, to get into the zone was very easy for me when I was young. Now I have to kick my ass to the bench. But at that time, it was bliss.
Yes. Yes, I can relate to that actually. It still exists though, doesn't it? That magical space where the world sort of disappears and 5, 6, 7 hours later you're looking at something that's arrived.
Yes. Yes, that still exists. Yes.
Yeah. Do you still have the ring there offhand?
I have this ring. I would have to dig it out though.
I'd love to see it on another occasion.
Yes. So yeah, if I would have known that this was your first question, I would
Yeah,
have.
yeah, no. It's yeah. And here is the thing, isn't it? You never know where conversations are going to take you.
No, but I can say what was significant about the ring, that it was very Art Nouveau-ish. It had flowing plant patterns. So there wasn't a single thing straight or square about it. And I think that's my core skill, that the thing that come out of an intuitive feeling for patterns and flow of forms. So in apprenticeship in Germany is rigorous, and it was later on pretty painful when I had to learn to work accurately and to requirements. So it's one thing to do what you feel like, then it's an entirely different one that to do something by instruction.
How did you navigate that, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I tried my best, but when you have to kind of do an exam, so the exam is tough. So you have to do all apprentices of that 3-year period have to do the same exercise, and in a given time. So
under exam conditions, as
yes,
we
absolutely, yes. So separate. So we had to do a 6-prong claw fitting, a close setting with a pattern in the bezel.
Okay.
And the gaps between the prongs had to be faceted.
Right.
So it's quite a thing, and the whole thing had to be conical.
Yes, I made one of those on my degree actually, but without the pattern. Oh no, there was a pattern. Yes. How long did they give you to do that?
6 hours.
It's not long.
No.
No, I took mine out the pickle and then trod on it. I was gutted.
And mine was beautifully made and 1 millimeter too short. And the master, the guild master said, like, I would love to give you the best marks, but I can't. And this is my dyslexia. I mean, I just, 1 millimeter short. It just, how can that happen?
You passed though.
Oh, yes. And then we had to, the other part was a free piece. And I made a belt buckle of which I'm still extremely proud. So I think, the next interview I will bring those 2 pieces around.
Yes.
I have achieved there. So, yeah.
I mean, we've just been reminiscing, or you've been sharing history, I suppose, and I get a real sense of pleasure from what you're saying. I'm just wondering where it's taken you in your career, where it's
many years later, and moving to the UK, and I did all the things that one would do with the background I had. So what happened then was I worked employed for Charles de Temple in Jermyn Street. So that was a jewelry practice. It was all gold, diamonds, and what have you. And then I set up my own business for many years, and then I hit a wall. I was bored out of my skull. And that's exactly the kind of thing, skull. While when I was 15 years before, to have something to do that didn't require intellectual engagement, if you like. 15 years later, I was desperate for it.
Right.
And this is when I already did teaching, as on an H&D in Epsom, and I taught on a foundation in Epsom as well, which was actually my teaching apprenticeship. And then I thought, like, I need to study. I need to go back to university. I need to do something for my head. I turn into a vegetable. So, and that was interesting because I had already studied in Berlin comparative religion, and I was very. I just got a place offered for ethnology. Is that an English word?
I'm not sure. I don't recognize it, in all honesty.
Okay, it had a numerous clauses. It meant, that there was a long waiting list for it. Right. So my idea was that I change to university studies and then academic work using my other interests, which is comparative religion, philosophy, and people that are different to me, really. So anyway, I was in the UK and I tried to find this kind of course, and there wasn't anything like that, because the university studies in Berlin were unique. But I found a course, a very strange course at Chelsea College of Art and Design, that was aimed for practitioners, and it was a history and theory of modern art, and the course philosophy was exactly what I was looking for.
Right.
So I went up to interview. Well, they never had anybody like me before, and it was cruel. I mean, they treated me as if I can't read.
Oh, right.
Because I was a craftsperson, I didn't have the right smell. the division at that time, that was 1993, the division between the crafts education
Okay.
and fine art education in the UK was like two different planets.
Are you talking about access to particular vocabulary?
Well, it's just a vocabulary, attitude, conceptual approach to studio practice. So they firmly place crafts practice into the commercial area.
Okay.
So it is the creation of product that refers to the need of an audience.
Okay. With really hard dividing lines.
Hard lined, you know,
right.
of them. And
okay.
so, but I didn't want to go to the Royal College or Central St. Martin's to do an MA in jewelry design. I was very arrogant. I thought, I know that. I didn't, but I thought I would. I thought I need this thing in the head. I need reading. I need vocabulary actually to express what I would like to achieve with wearable work. So they later told me, because they more or less all of them became also friends of mine later on. So they said they had a long conversation between themselves. They took a bet with me.
Oh, really? Okay. Whether you'd make it or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have to admit that it was pretty crap what I was doing for a long time. I mean, I passed, but it wasn't particularly good. So what I was able to do, but it was this magic course of, I have my peers they're still my friends. And there was these endless half-drunk conversations and discussions in the pub afterwards. And really, I learned. And we had to write 2 papers a semester, and no, 1 paper per semester and two presentations. So it was a lot of work for a part-time course. And our cohort was, they went for it. So the Q&A was always, you had to be on your tippy toes.
Right.
So that was so much fun.
Expansive by the sounds of it.
What?
Expansive.
How do you mean expensive?
Well, it just expanded.
Oh, expanding, yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it opened doors.
Yeah.
But I was just in this phase of, it was just fantastic.
Sounds amazing, actually. I mean, for me, when I think back on learning moments and my life's sort of, and that through my life, things pop up now from 30 years ago where I sort of find myself going, oh, right, okay, that's what that meant.
So what was your career trajectory?
A chemistry teacher.
Oh, wow.
When I was 14 years old, in Bentleywood High School for Girls, this woman, her name was Mrs. Stiles, and she looked a little bit like Miss Trunchard in a way. Fabulous human being, though. And she was stood at the front of the class, and she just told us about her daughter, who was on this jewellery degree at Central St. Martin's, I think, and wanting to knit with wire. And her daughter couldn't knit. I think she was complaining about her hands hurting or something. So she'd been knitting this wire for her daughter to make jewellery with. And something just clicked in my head where I went, oh my God, jewellery could be absolutely anything. That's what I want to do. So I got myself through and I was just really focused, what do I need to do? So it was A-level art foundation, and then applied to colleges. And I wasn't remotely interested in using metal. I mean, there are consequences to that, but as you can probably imagine.
Yeah.
And interesting, I mean, and then so it became about finding a course that was really open in terms of material. So I got it, I applied for and got accepted to Middlesex. Gosh, when was that? End of the 80s, I guess. So at the time when Pierre Degan was there, Caroline Broadhead, Julia Mannheim, and I just, I spent my 4 years. There was a year out there exploring paint, fabric, wadding, plastics, and just struggling to find. And it was hard, you know. I found something resembling a material language for myself around about April in the final year. So I cut it quite fine, and things suddenly sort of started to come together. But yeah, for me, it was quite a straightforward moment of clarity as quite a young person. And I have that dyslexia as well. And I kind of got a diagnosis for that a couple of years ago, and it made sense of an awful lot of things. But I was always able to find that focus and that quiet place as a young person. I was quite studious. It was a struggle. Obviously, you know, not being able to spell is problematic. And making things, you know, similar to you, I made my own clothes, I painted, and those skills still appear in what I make, very much so. It's that I spent an awful lot of time in needles and threads in my hands.
Mm-hmm.
And that for a long time was how I solved my problems, actually. I didn't go towards metals for fixtures and fittings, I was sewing things. Haberdashery appears in the work now in a different way, but
it does. Yes, I didn't know. I didn't put this together. Yeah,
my grandmother was a self-taught tailor. Apparently, I didn't know my grandmother very well. She died when I was 6, but my mother taught me how to sew. I'm really impatient, you know, and I haven't sewn clothes for a long time, but seams were never really finished properly. So I'd wear these garments and there was always these loose threads, you know.
Well, this is uncanny because this is the same in my family. So my grandmother is self-taught tailor, but then the older sister of my mother was a professional tailor. And so my mother also taught me how to make clothes. And I remember vividly, she taught me how to make a shirt using a gold beige sort of satin with a double seam. Do you know what a double seam is?
Remind me.
So you stitch it the wrong way around.
Right.
And then you turn it and then you stitch the seams in so that because the fraying needs to be inside of it. So I hated that.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, there's but interestingly, I'm able to be a lot neater when I'm making work, jewellery.
Yeah.
I find it quite difficult to work in an untidy way, to not tie in those edges, to not finish seams.
Yes, you see, I love open seams. I wear a lot of open seams too. But this is the thing that because punk started to happen, or not the kind of London very black, even though we were black too, and I had black hair. But with a cute touch. So the clothes that I made were painted, studded, leathers, collaged, very painterly. So they didn't have any kind of double seams at all. They used they were super creative in a non-conventional way, and they were very successful. They sold really well. Actually, I just found one sweatshirt that I made for my now husband, then boyfriend. So I bought the stuff. I bought the clothes from army surplus for hardly anything, and then I sewed and painted and cut, and it's like it was before Vivian. Well, maybe probably the same sort of time when Vivian Westwood's London shop happened. It was this sort of spirit.
Sure. Where were you selling these clothes?
Flea market.
Okay.
Everybody had little kind of businesses going on the flea market. So I sold cake.
Okay.
And clothes, and then I made this jewelry range out of Haribo.
Oh yes.
So we talk 1981, 82.
Okay.
Came to the UK the winter 84. So it's a very intense time. Just sort of like apprenticeship towards ending apprenticeship at the same time. Turning being this creative. My master he wasn't at all. I mean, when I worked for for his business, I had to be accurate. But other kind of creative outputs, he didn't interfere.
Okay.
So once a day, I was allowed to listen to the Clash, London Calling.
Okay.
So I thought I'm pretty sure he just thought I was cute. So
okay. Well, he must have chosen you for a reason. Did he ever tell you what that was?
I think it was this life, energy, young, creative. And then I had all those friends who were musicians and actors who were just about starting to make it. So there was fashion as well, massive. So it's like cliquey kind of fashion.
Yes.
And I think probably because my master was a very straight guy in his taste, but maybe he wanted some of that too for himself.
But it's really intelligent people tend to value or bring towards them what they don't have because it enriches practice.
Yes.
I think it's.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose I'm wondering as well. I mean, with the rigor of the discipline. I mean, what you can find for some when they've learned the rigor, it's really hard to smash through that and bring energy into the work and freedom into the work. These two don't often merge.
Yeah, I mean, it was during my apprenticeship. The two things is that I discovered Joseph Beuys, and I discovered Bernhard Schobinger.
Okay.
And they both had the right look.
Yes.
And I don't think that's that intellectual consideration. I think that is purely that was the look I liked.
Yes, I can understand that.
So I became that jewelry like Bernhard Schobinger's jewelry even existed was like, for me, magic. And I showed it to my master, and he usually was very tolerant. But this he couldn't tolerate.
Couldn't tolerate, didn't understand it?
It offended his
Okay.
goldsmithing sense of rightness and how to do things.
I can understand. I can understand why that might happen. knowing the
and
work.
It means that the look overrides the correctness of the making method.
Okay, and that's the discipline that can get in the way of being completely free.
Yeah, but yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you like to express freely through metal and using fire is a very different thing than being a goldsmith that, you know, follows construction methods that have developed over considerable long time.
Yes.
So a setting, this is a setting, you know, a setting looks like that. But now in contemporary jewelry and some art jewelers develop new settings.
Yes.
So beautiful Annette Dam, for example, you know, beautiful settings and
Yes.
different ways, but none of that existed, you know, in 1980.
Absolutely.
There wasn't that sort of contemporary jewelry culture as we know it now. So
Yes.
everybody was pioneering, and some of the people, they were young, and I think Bernard is 10 years older than me, 15 years. So some of the people that were in apprenticeships alongside me, and then some of the people that I met later on in different kind of European festival type of gatherings of jewelers. It was all very, very self-organized, like, you know, I like a fan sign.
Yes.
Like a clique. And what happened, of course, is sort of like through the merging of art schools with universities, especially in the UK. Teaching styles started to change.
Yes.
So first of all, the requirement of academic behaviors and regulations and requirements. And how do you do this as a jewelry maker? How do you respond? So in the early years, it was all about write an essay. I mean, I think that's just the most stupid thing ever. So, you know, write an essay, you know, you go to kind of like study jewelry design, and then they say write an essay, and that gives you a degree really finally. So, yeah, 40 years on, jewelry design within university setups is very mature. So the way we kind of articulate learning outcomes and requirements for academic studies in, you know, a creative field, we know now how to do this. We know now how to ask for something that demonstrates thinking, reflection, analysis in the making of something.
Yes.
But back then, you know, it didn't exist. I remember, I mean, my first job was in Epsom on an H&D. I went there, you know, first day I had prepared for 6 weeks teaching on the basis of what I knew in my apprenticeship. And the classes didn't even turn up. The students didn't even come.
Wow.
Yeah. So I went to the person who employed me, and I was so shocked because I would have been thrown out in my apprenticeship, you know, that was just a no-no. And he said, well, yeah, that's your problem. These are your classes. You have to kind of sort it. Like, what? So I started cracking the whip, and the students loved it.
Okay.
I mean, it's that they wanted that discipline, that action planning, that engagement, that, you know, my lessons were fun, and they learned something. And some of the people on those years are now very successful jewelers in their own right.
Okay.
And it's just sort of like, it's the thing, like they had teachers and course directors who were absolutely not interested in them whatsoever. They weren't interested in their process. They were not interested in them as people. So that changed. I made a change there.
Right. And you're describing rigor again, actually, and framework and discipline.
Yes.
Commitment.
Commitment, big time.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't, you know, I mean, this famous thing, you know, you have to spend 1,000 hours to play the violin. You know, it's the same thing with everything that you
Yes. Oh
use
gosh,
your hands.
yes.
You know, our hands are super sensitive, but they are
Yes.
also,
Well, there's a muscle memory there, isn't there? I mean, I know for myself, my making comes in bursts, and there's usually a gap of time between those bursts. And the first day or two is quite raunchy. You know, my fingers are forgotten. Well, not forgotten. They take a little bit of time to go from sort of rusty to smooth with process, handling the tools. And then even within that, there are days when it just doesn't work, you know, and I'm melting everything I'm trying to work with, or it just isn't working, you know. And I've learned that over the years that today's not a making day, actually. My body,
yes, I have that too.
yes, my body's really, really kind of, I don't know, it's just not aligned to doing it in that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you see, what I found out was that I really enjoy this part of the teaching, to conceptualize and create systems through which students go by experience learning. And I guess that's why the teaching then took over.
Right.
And I mean, I closed my business many years later. I was already at the School of Jewellery then. And I was MA course director then. I mean, I made it from, you know, hourly paid lecturer on an H&D to an MA course director in 10 years, I think. So at that time, I closed my business.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, while I still absolutely think of myself as an artist, I am an artist academic, and actually teaching is more. I hesitate to say more important to me, but it's like, probably as a jewelry artist, I don't want to do certain things, whereas I got really ambitious in the university.
Okay.
So I wanted the MA that I was leading then to be one of the best in the world. And I wanted to become a professor. And I wanted my students to be successful and win prizes and set up businesses. And I've often got more deep satisfaction out of a student's success, rather than that. Yeah, it just worked out that way really well for me.
Oh, I'm just thinking of your master, the gentleman you did your apprenticeship with, and how are you guys in touch?
He's dead by now.
Oh, right.
And to kind of like go and see his son who's running his business, I don't feel that's the right thing.
But his sense of satisfaction for you, really, your career started with him.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. But I did this we had to go to school 1 day a week in the apprenticeship. And this guy who was our school teacher, Karl Dau, he's a well-known jewelry designer in Germany. I went to him to say hello because he also thought that I was really difficult. And I remember I just had sprayed my boots gold, and he was, it's like he is a minimalist.
Okay.
He is an absolute, the epitome of an accurate German goldsmith, and in design as well. So it's like this super square, this super circle, and I'm the opposite. I'm the part.
Yes.
So he was sort of exasperated with me. So going up to him and saying, hello, I'm MA course director at this famous school of jewelry. And he said, well, it's really nice to hear what became of all of you. I mean, he was like, he couldn't engage.
Right.
And another friend and colleague of ours, a German, Anna Lorenz, her master, she also served an apprenticeship. Her master came up to me on one of those trade fairs to ask if she's around. And he also was like, what is this? I mean, they couldn't believe it. But it's opportunity, and it's using one's skills, and the German apprenticeship and then the trade system is super tight. So that doesn't lend itself to entrepreneurial spirit.
Right.
So for my then boyfriend, now husband, to go to the UK, where at that time, I mean, it's changing now too, or has changed dramatically, but
yes,
where you could make something out of yourself.
Yes.
That was the thing to do.
Yes.
We are these kind of people.
Yeah, there was a real energy. I'm flashing back to my time at university around the end of the 80s and the early 90s, and that energy at that time. And for me, I understood that as I could do whatever I wanted.
Yes, but because everything wasn't about money. I mean, living now is so expensive, and everything is motivated by money. Everything.
Yes. Yes. No, you're right. It is.
So the kind of like that it should be an educational goal for a person to discover a sustainable, lifelong career of a deeply satisfying engagement. I don't think that there is a statistic for that satisfaction.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about now you've put it in those terms. I mean, I'm thinking about my husband's practice as well, and the consequences of my practice and his practice and what our home looks like.
Yeah.
With the outcomes that we've made, and the things that we've kept or haven't sold, and then where these things go then, and still, this the pleasure they give us too as objects. I mean, not that we ever. I mean, him more than me, really, with the large scale bits of blacksmithing that are in the house at the moment, never things that we were ever going to keep when they were made. But now that they're here, they've become kind of memories of our lives, actually. I mean, pieces, I've still got pieces I made, as you have, the first piece of jewellery from my MA that was finished, inverted commas, question mark. Or it was finished in that moment, wasn't it? And similarly, my degree, the test pieces I made, that I haven't kept all of them, but some things I have kept because there's something going on there that I haven't resolved that's really interesting.
Yes.
And these things take up space, but they also chart a journey, and they hold memories too, which I guess is why we're in the business of that we're in. So, and the poetry that's attached to, well, not the poetry, that's the wrong word, the humanity perhaps that's attached to all of that. I mean, we've just had an extraordinarily what's the word? Poetic. I keep using that word poetry. It's not what I mean. Reminiscing Vivid. It was how you've been describing your journey and your memories, and that with it come pictures, emotions and energy.
But it's also, I mean, you know, looking at the pivotal points.
Yes.
So, you know, at which something clicked.
Yes.
And a new understanding sort of like was possible, because I think, you know, this is also, it's really difficult to think something new. And, you know, there's so much almost years of preparation, and suddenly one is able to think something new.
Yes.
So and it's not in a universal sense that it is innovative in, you know, for everybody. It's an individual embodied experience. And everybody, you know, when I was a younger teacher, I didn't understand why the students always had to kind of invent the wheel.
Okay.
But now I have a deep understanding of it. It actually has something to do that everybody has to experience that reinvention of the wheel, because that's how brain abilities, mind abilities evolve.
Yes.
You know, if somebody tells you this is this and this and this,
you never have your own penny dropping moment, do you?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Penny dropping moment. Yes.
Yes.
I mean, you know, when I studied then at Chelsea, obviously, you know, I was the one and only craftsperson alongside all these painters, sculptors, theorians, contextual studies, tutors, what have you. And while they liked me, they didn't like what I was making. It was a shoot. So because it had a look that didn't, you know, that it wasn't contemporary in their eyes, you know, it was super romantic. I used precious metals. So, you know, I came from a goldsmithing apprenticeship. So the pivotal points of where I came to understand what's the difference between creative jewelry and art.
Okay.
So it's that, yeah, and I know this from some other colleagues who had this kind of thing as well. I mean, I know of another colleague of mine who comes from China and was educated as a painter. But you know, for him to that point of, oh, this is contemporary art, when you know you come from a culture that is historically built, that goldsmithing is. Oh,
yes.
And then something entirely different starts to happen. You use the goldsmithing as a conceptual expression of ideas. Wow. Now that was, for me, new.
I can imagine. At what point did that happen?
Probably, well, I mean, it was part-time, probably sort of like around 90, well, second year of my MA.
Okay. I'm just wondering about your PhD and the impact that had on your practice.
Yeah, but that PhD came after the MA.
Yes.
So I wanted to do this PhD because I loved my MA studies so much. I didn't want to leave Chelsea. Chelsea was for me like a, you know, it's sort of the thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. People say it has changed dramatically because Manresa Road, you know, off the King's Road, the old art school that was the one and first purpose-built art school in the country, and it was so cool. So, you know, to be a student there, you know, every time I went there, I was so chuffed that I got in.
Okay.
And it was intellectually driven. So while maybe other people thought that, you know, the Royal College or Central St. Martin would have been more suitable, for me, Chelsea was the place because, you know, we read continental philosophy and Marx and psychoanalysis, and, you know, we read all the difficult stuff. And And it was so much fun, and everybody in my cohort was like me.
Right. That sense of home.
Yeah, but we were all anoraks.
Okay.
And you know, many of them sort of like, because of this anorak behavior, or not really fitting in, but we really fitted in with each other.
Yes. No, I
And
can picture that.
Yeah, and so with time, my jewelry changed dramatically. It was still romantic and it was still poetic, but I came to understand of how I can frame it differently.
Okay.
I started making installations. I engaged with the kind of way of how I saw my peers putting things together.
Okay.
So the methods of putting it together. My look is still my look, and I understood, you know, that this is really important. It was only finally, sort of like in the final exhibitions, when one of the most demanding tutors, he gave me a compliment for one of my works, which is Tacita dentata. It's around Snow White and apples and
Oh, yeah, I know the piece. Yes.
and Freud's idea that our vagina eats penises. Or maybe that's a feminist reinterpretation. So anyway, that work then sort of like was the first fully fledged art.
Okay.
I really did.
That piece went to the School of Jewellery, did it not?
Yes, it was my first. I just got the job there.
Okay. How was it received at the School of Jewellery?
The caretaker wanted to remove it, and it went up to the dean. The dean then say, it stays, it's art.
Have you got footage, film? There was, if I remember correctly, it was pieces of apple and film of you eating the apple.
Yes. So it was a big thing. It was because the necklace consisted of one apple that was bitten into pieces.
That's right.
And each one was then resin encased. But because it still has sugar and water in there, the apple continued its deterioration process.
Yes.
So now, 20 years later, it's just a bit of peel and the resin there.
Okay.
So
do you still have it?
I have pieces. I can show. Another pivotal piece that I have archived, and I should have dug out. My apologies.
That's fine.
It's a pivotal piece, but it's in archive. Archive means that I have drawers up there.
Okay.
This is where the things are from the past, and I have to step onto my bench to get there.
Okay.
So yeah, that was brilliant, and I was known as the apple lady in the jewelry quarter. So because obviously, for people who don't know, the School of Jewelry, it has a huge atrium, and it was in the atrium. The apples between which the necklace was displayed deteriorated over the period of time into March. So the entire atrium smelled of apple. And the video was on so you went into the atrium, got this hit by the apple smell, and it was in the background. The sound was. So the entire jewelry quarter was up. I mean, this was like, and the staff, they had fights with each other of like, this is bullshit. You know, how can they employ somebody like this? I also was the first. I wasn't the first woman, but I was the first foreigner ever employed there.
All right.
So yeah, that was my hello to the school.
Jewellery, fabulous.
Yes, I mellowed very much since. So right now it's these kind of moments of breaking through something, they don't exist quite like that anymore.
Yes. The
I
world,
guess,
yes.
you know, it's a similar thing. It's like, you know, when I pierced my ear, my mother nearly fainted. When I did an installation in the School of Jewelry, you know, people were up in arms and wanted it removed. You know, these kind of, they're so cute back and so mild. You know, to have that sort of impact, if you like. You almost have to step over taboos to get that response.
Yes, yeah, but I mean, I think that was what I was thinking. Really, that piece of work at that time was a taboo. Actually, it questioned what jewellery was.
Absolutely, yes.
And I mean, and I guess also what makes art, and to put a piece of work like that in a school of jewellery at that time, I would imagine would have been very, very challenging.
Yes, and I wrote an essay about it, and because of my Chelsea contacts, I also kind of knew about editors for journals, and I got that essay published. That was another shock.
Right. Why a shock?
Because that somebody like me writes an essay.
Okay.
That was unknown of. And that I get it published, that was like, what?
Okay. The world's changed shape significantly, hasn't it?
Now I don't want to do academic research anymore because it's so regimented and so intimidating and uncreative.
Okay.
But at that time, you know, just finding my own way, because there wasn't any, you know, there wasn't other jewelers who wrote essays.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't art and design college people who published papers.
Sure.
Whereas now I think it's the other way around. It has reached another extreme, so much so that actually the need for freedom, artistic freedom, intellectual freedom, academic freedom becomes desperate almost.
Okay. Almost at a point where some more groundbreaking moments need to happen, perhaps. Whatever that looks like.
Yes. Did you see that rant on Instagram? What's his name again? Sorry, I need to find that reference. You know, about the 50% cuts for creative subjects on Roberta and Darida Smith. They are ex-Chelsea.
Right.
Big time. So they been practicing, teaching. There were students there. The old Chelsea School of Art. That's long before my time.
Yes. I've seen well, obviously, I sort of read the news and what was circulated. The reference you're describing, I don't think so.
Hold on, I think I can find it, Roberta.
Yeah.
Bob and Roberta Smith are the artists. And so Bob Smith, had put a very lengthy rant on Instagram. I sent you a link.
Yes, please.
So, this kind of spirit that he describes, that is actively attacked by this Tory government and the entire kind of like establishment shift, because there's so many people who approve of this approach. So there is quite a reactionary cultural shift in the UK. So while I was reminiscing of that time of where I found out that I can fit in, now, I'm talking about where I do not fit in anymore.
Sure. Yeah, sorry, it's raining here. I don't know if you can hear the noise.
Yes, quite a lot.
Yes. I'm in the top of our house, and there's a bank of windows to my left, which are sloped, and the water's just landing on it. I think it's easing up, actually. I was just thinking about fitting in. I mean, that's a movable feast, isn't it, on sometimes a daily basis?
Yes, but also, it's a political and a pedagogic concern.
Yes, absolutely.
How do we teach young people who are in the process of finding out where they fit in?
Yes.
Having done so many changes already oneself.
Yes, but in a political and economical and pandemic landscape that's just constantly shifting as well.
Yes.
I mean, I thought I kind of had some sense of what the next few years may look like. That I think at the moment I've lost a hold of. Most people have, actually, right now anyway. But I mean, I'm just thinking about Brexit now and what Munich used to look like for us, and what that might look like in the future, pandemic permitting, and how to navigate the bureaucracy of that all of a sudden there being this border barrier that I certainly didn't vote for, and what that actually means for, I suppose, my creative practice. I mean, and I guess, which is touching on another point here, the market for our work, for want of a better word, and exhibition opportunities, and having to, because of the very niche nature, I guess, of what it is that we do, the effort it takes to organise these kind of opportunities for myself, us, a community of us's. I mean, Munich was fabulous for that. And having this once a year thing in my diary always created a certain energy and impetus, and it feels at the moment, I mean, we're yet to go through it, I guess, but there's almost like somebody's plonked a brick wall in the way to get over as well now. If there weren't enough hurdles in the way in the first instance, there's now this kind of barrier where Europe is no longer just over there, slightly different for yourself, I know, but yeah, I still find that kind of quite emotionally damaging, I have to say.
Well, as you know, Berlin is now my second living place again. So after a very, very long time of just going there for visits, I do think that Europe the change of Europe is dramatic in terms of the impact of everybody's sort of life.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm now older, so I will not work employed for that much longer. I mean, still a few years to go, but not that long. So the options of self-employment are really important again.
Yes.
And as a lot of things cannot be done, or imagine, this 50% cut, let's say, the deans are, and the pro-vice chancellor, so they will all fight in their way. But, as long as it's this government, they can still direct things because it's not proportional democracy in this country. So if that's what they want to do, they can do this. And if there might be a shift in the voting patterns, to undo these kind of damages is almost impossible.
Yes.
So this is the very, very vibrant creative industries in the UK. They will take such as bad a hit as Brexit. So it's how to recover from that.
Well, unless something new happens as almost a punk response again. I mean,
I mean, I think there will be private educational things. They will not be able to award degrees, but maybe people will think what for? What did I benefit from the degree? I benefited from the learning experience, but did I ever? Well, I don't know. I mean, okay, for me, of course, I got my job because I had the degrees, but there will be a different kind of thinking.
Sure.
Because a degree doesn't give you, sustainable lifelong skills. So you might have to do a degree in order to have the paperwork, but then the skills you need to get from somewhere else.
I think it was always ever thus, though, wasn't it? I mean, there's only so much you can teach in 3 years.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm just thinking about somebody I know who has both the rigors of an apprenticeship on the one hand and then the degree on the other, and how those have combined. I mean, for me, my degree honed my material experimentation. So I came to my degree with the freedom. I then had to learn to sort of do something with it in an intelligent way. Yeah. And then I had to revisit the metalwork that I was taught in my first year to resolve things. And for me, the balance between that, I mean, I suppose, again, the freedom and the creativity of the object in itself, and then I use jewellery to get it onto the body. And that's where those two places meet. But yeah, I can't actually see that far in front of me to what's going to happen next to equip students for what happens next. I thought I knew. I don't think I do anymore. But then I'm saying that quite a lot. I used to think I knew, but I really don't know very much at all. And that seems to be getting worse the older I get. I think I've become more and more aware of how much there is still to learn.
I mean, everybody still have to find their market. So, but that, will not be in their own village. The thinking must be international. What do we do if politicians and politics and world conflicts put up boundaries that we cannot interfere with? So
yes, good point.
I mean, the web is great, as long as we can trade.
Yes.
Internationally.
Yes.
as long as we can do that, actually, the audience is, my audience has multiplied ever
Yes.
since, it's sort of like Asia, and specifically China, has sort of welcomed me.
Yes.
Or my work, or my teaching. So, and there, is this, obviously everybody wants to be liked. So you gravitate towards where you're welcomed. And Europe, to buy art, to buy jewelry art is a luxury.
Yes.
So, I mean, aside from the fact that you could actually wear it. Like a friend of mine who has this fabulous necklace from our junk project. And I go to dinner in her house. So because her husband bought it for her.
Which piece was that?
It's a sort of red piece with a sort of cube-like, I can't describe it. Anyway, it's bright red. And it has this beaded cube-like thing, pendant-like.
I wonder who made that.
No, I can't remember. Again, sorry, another reference that we have to do those interviews better. We have to kind of like show the references to our audience, otherwise they can't follow our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know when you're talking about artists and makers, what you're describing, because I know the work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably we should do something different, or at least put it in the chat bar so people can
get links and references. But it's always learning, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, you can share. You're new to Google Meets, but
Yes.
if you go to the present now button that's next to raise a hand on the bottom of the computer screen,
yes.
You can present a tab.
Oh yeah.
So you can open images in different tabs, and then you can share stuff on your computer screen. When I share a screen, and it's something about this computer and Google Meet, if I share my screen as opposed to sharing a tab, it will kick me out of the meeting and the recording will stop. So the wonders of tech, and then the extra problems.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, the story goes, so I go to dinner and she has this necklace and it's this beautiful presented. So, and then I said, oh, you have this necklace. And so how do you wear it? And she said, I don't know how to wear it. So this, and I thought like, fuck yeah, they are very arty people. Their house is full of art. But when it comes to wearing art, how to kind of put it together with clothes or preferred clothes.
Yes.
So, this is a woman who really likes to be in leggings and a jeans jacket, which I think, it would look fabulous.
Yes.
But in her mind, you can't. So
right.
There are so many wearability restrictions in people.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
this can't. Where did that come from?
Where does that come from? Yes.
Yes. Whose voice is that?
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about my friend Katrina, who wore Francesca's piece from Junk.
Oh yes.
At our wedding, actually, Nora and mine's wedding, and that she just wears that with anything she fancies, actually. But she is one of those fabulous women who kind of just sort of does what she wants. There's a freedom and a confidence there.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yes, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, I have a considerable collection of contemporary jewelry. So, but I'm hoarding.
Okay.
So it goes in the drawer system. It's like I'm curating it, and
Do you wear it?
No.
No. You see, I don't really wear it very often either. What's that about?
I wear jewelry every day, and I'm sleep with jewelry on me.
Mm,
But these are pieces that sort of fit in.
mm,
All designed or comes from something, or is made by somebody who I like, or
mm.
but it has it must have a high degree of comfort,
You're right.
or I can't tolerate it in the everyday sort of things of what I do.
Okay.
So dressing up, okay, there might be a special piece coming out, but it probably would be my grandmother's sort of jewelry, or it would be pearls, or some things that I actually I modified a lot of inherited jewelry.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have much because the one grandmother who really had a lot and fabulous stuff. They were bombed 3 times,
Oh, right.
and then yeah, third time she lost the entire box of the jewelry. So
Right.
on that side of the family, there was nothing. So all I have is really from my husband's family. And then, it's sort of like lots of that stuff was bought long after the war, when some sort of a sense of well-being allowed for these status objects.
Right. Yes.
So, and I modified them all. So I redesigned them so that they fit with. I have one piece here, actually. So, oops, can you see this?
Sort of. It's a little out of focus. Is that gold?
Yeah, pure gold.
Lovely.
So it's flexible. It's industry made. Sort of. Where's my camera? There's my camera.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
see this one?
yes. Yes.
So it's a gold. It's engine turned.
Yes.
It's fully flexible. It's super to wear. It's lovely to touch. So I painted it with Tipex.
Okay. That's what the white is. Okay.
Yeah, and now it looks good.
Yes. So as you wear it, that Tipex cracks.
No, I mean because it's sort of so super. It's like super flexible. Look at that.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I mean,
Okay.
I think this is an enormously wonderful bracelet, but I couldn't wear it like that. So
Well, the Tipex has knocked it back and given it that.
yeah, it sort of gives it that different kind of look.
Well, that sort of painterly quality you get with a door that's been painted and weathered many
Exactly.
times.
Yes, the open seams again, and the worn surfaces.
Yes.
I mean, engine turning is
But
wonderful.
you softened an industrial process. Actually, it's what that's done, that material on the top.
Yeah, I mean, I think also, I do think that what most people understand that jewelry comes from an industrial process.
Yes.
So it's standard, if you like, to turn it into our understanding of our aesthetic preferences and making methods means that those standard elements have to be broken into unpredictables, really.
Yes. Well, so I suppose the addition of the hand to that industrial process where it just softens it.
Yes, it makes it also mine.
Yes, yes. There aren't many people that would paint their gold bracelets with Tipex.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm being asked, I wear this a lot, but then of course I am often asked, why is this white if it's gold? And I think that, like you reacted, many people react like this as well. And I do think, to have that humorous to it is really important. Otherwise, it just gets too serious.
Absolutely. But it's also not permanent. That's
No, it's
the
not
thing.
Mind you, I wouldn't want to kind of clean that off.
No. But there's that sort of, it's a veneer, isn't it? It's an altering, but it's a superficial coating of
Yes.
of what we need. It's like almost like that sort of suit of armor, I suppose. But yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, repairing and altering of found pieces I love doing that.
There's something about ownership in that, actually, that process.
But it also goes back to Bernard Schobinger, his bottlenecks and nail rings, and sort of that these kind of thrown away shitty rubbish things can be turned into something that is.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask him this because Cartier is now making a nail ring in gold, and I really want to know if they copied Bernard's idea from back then, from the 80s, or if Bernard sold this idea to Cartier. So, but I haven't seen him for a long time. So next time I see him, I will ask him directly. It's not something you put in an email. So yeah, but you can see already that, if Cartier is, making a gold nail ring, which was such a really groundbreaking, different thing in the early 80s, you can see how commercialized groundbreaking things have become and accepted.
Yes.
So, it's cool to have.
Yes.
Yeah. And I have so many Chinese students who are enraptured by punk and punk aesthetic, and they go to these shops, to these super boutiques. They pay thousands and thousands of pounds for a leather jacket that looks like punk, and you're like,
yeah.
I mean, they buy the look completely without any understanding of the spirit of it.
Yes.
But they want some of it. I mean, there is a real desire for this self-invention.
Yes.
And I just, probably we just have to stick it out to the next youth revolution, and then, maybe something is changing yet again.
What was the most recent original movement, do you think? Was it hip hop?
Do you mean in youth culture?
Yes.
Or rebellion?
Both.
I think rebellion probably. Oh, what was it again? What was that? The Iraq War, where they put the son of the Pink Floyd musician into prison. What was it? Because he climbed the Architrave. That was the last one of a big thing. But while the poll tax.
Oh, poll tax rights, yes. Yeah. I'm sort of wondering about sort of punk, the punk culture kind of permeated everything in a way. Has anything like that happened since, or was that the last moment of?
Well, a lot of them went into academia, didn't they? I mean, maybe that's why, academia is becoming so regulated, because of the many of those people who have these cultural and political backgrounds. The only place they could survive was becoming academics. And
that's really funny.
And then having to endure a hell because they have to behave to norm. So yes, well, you know.
Oh dear.
And probably, young people will find a different way of expressing themselves. I mean,
Yes.
jewelry is really a beautiful area to do that because it's small scale. You can wear it.
Yes.
And it has now, of course, it still has a huge aspect that is industry related.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
But then again, it has a counterculture dimension to it as well, whereby you have to define your own liking.
Yes.
So it's very, very different to all that glitters. Have you watched any of that?
I have watched a bit of that. Yes.
Shall we have a rant about that?
Oh dear. I think as a TV program, it's gotten better as it's been going.
Yeah.
As a TV program. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes. Wordless. Okay.
I don't quite know what they're trying. I don't know. I don't even know if I want to go record myself actually saying what I really think about it.
No, I don't either. But it has brought an enormous amount of interest.
Oh yes, yes,
to,
yes.
To learn how to make jewelry.
Yes, and that can't be a bad thing.
No,
maybe. I can't imagine the conversation. Well, actually, yeah. I might swerve around what I'm thinking right now. I'm quite intrigued to see, I suppose, what the impact of that may actually be. I mean, I don't know. For things like the Great Pottery Throwdown, for example, within ceramics, which has been airing much longer, how that has impacted on that as an industry. I haven't really researched that at all. So I'm actually quite interested to see what happens because of this program.
Yes, me too.
I'm just thinking about HNDs at the moment, suddenly, randomly, and there aren't that many of those in this country anymore, I don't think.
No, but they recruit fantastically well. They are really, really popular.
Yes.
And I mean, I was always sort of like intrigued by why the School of Jewelry kept the HND, but they were right.
Yes. Yes.
And actually, a lot of the things that I thought 10 years ago, I changed my mind, and because I think some of the apprenticeships, HNDs, really rigorous skill training, so
Yes.
they should be there.
Yes, I agree.
And the nice thing in Germany, if you want to kind of study jewelry design as a degree, you have to have that as a background.
Okay.
I think that would be amazing.
How long did the apprenticeship take you?
Sorry?
How long was the apprenticeship?
Well, because I had A levels, only 3 years. It would be 3.5, but because I had A levels, it was reduced.
Yeah. I mean, and I think within that, if we talk about it in terms of commitment to one's education for a moment, you're talking about a 3-year apprenticeship and then a 3-year degree. So that's 6 years.
Yes.
And I think that would be quite horrifying for a lot of people in the UK.
I have no idea where this comes from, that, you learn your professional skills in a week.
Yes.
What kind of thinking is that?
Yes, I mean, I'm still learning, and I hope I spend the rest of my life continuing to learn. Actually,
I mean, no concert musician would ever think like that.
no.
So why is it,
But it's also, I think, a question of patience. If it doesn't work first time, students can get discouraged, disappointed. And I mean, I'm just sort of thinking about the differences between soldering a really small silver something and a really, really large copper something, and all the changes you have to make in your process to achieve both outcomes. And it's an easy thing to do if you've got lots of experience. You make those adjustments really quickly, but the first time you do it, really tough. You have to change you have to change everything, don't you? And that's taken me years. That kind of fluency, I suppose, and even now I still get it wrong.
Yeah, I'm no good with large scale. I leave that to others to do. Forming, yes, but soldering on large scale is not for me.
Yeah. I mean, Noah's approach is interesting again. I mean, he's welding, and there's the moment when you bring his aesthetic into the jewellery world, actually, which is something we should do more often, because it is alarming and horrifying, but also quite exciting and freeing. So, jewellery on the linear.
Yeah, fascinating. Yes. Yeah. We have been talking for a long time.
Yes, I should possibly stop recording now, actually.
Let me just say, I think this can go on.
Yes.
And it will go on. So maybe in a month's time, we have another conversation. It will take us somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe we invite a third person.
Yes.
So for now, before we stop recording, we say bye-bye, yeah?
Yes.
See
you. Okay. See you very soon.
Yes, stop recording. But where?